So, when Elon Musk spoke at the World Economic Forum, he didn't just give us a few scattered predictions. What he laid out was a fully integrated, multi domain strategy for the next decade. And you have to see it as a single, cohesive blueprint for a massive planetary scale transformation. So, let's break it down.
And this one quote, it's everything. It's not just some hopeful soundbite. It's the mission statement, the strategic objective. This one idea frames the entire plan because it fundamentally shifts the basic premise of our entire global economy. So, what does he actually mean by sustainable abundance? Well, think of it as a post-scarcity economic theory. The core idea is that if you combine incredibly cheap artificial intelligence with a massive robotic labor force, you could produce enough goods and services for every single person on the planet. It completely rewrites the basic rules of supply and demand. All right, so here's how we're going to deconstruct this blueprint. We're looking at 5 core pillars. First, the main idea of abundance itself. Second, the robotic economy that's going to power it. Third, the biggest hurdle to overcome, energy. Fourth, the truly wild solution of moving computing into space. And finally, what all this means for the next chapter of humanity.
Okay, let's start with the end goal, the strategic outcome, the why behind this entire massive technological push, getting to a post-scarcity world.
Now, what's so fascinating here is the framing. This isn't being pitched as some far-off utopian dream. No, it's presented as the direct, engineered result of very specific technologies all coming together at the right time. The thesis is that we're right on the edge of a phased transition, moving from a zero-sum world to a truly positive-sum civilization.
So, what's the engine that's supposed to power this huge shift? It's really the synthesis of 2 technologies. You have artificial intelligence as the brain and humanoid robotics as the body. This new equation, honestly, it might be the most radical idea in the entire presentation. It completely decouples economic output from the limitations of the human population. I mean, if you can build billions of intelligent robots, then your global GDP is no longer tied to how many people you have. It's tied to your manufacturing capacity. The whole concept of a poverty line just dissolves.
And get this, we're not talking about some 50-year plan. The proposed timeline is incredibly aggressive. The projection is that by 2026, AI will be smarter than any single human. Right after that, in 2027, the physical robot workforce starts rolling out to consumers. And then, the most audacious claim of all, by 2031, AI is expected to surpass the collective intelligence of all of humanity combined. That's the exponential curve in action right there.
Okay, so with any massive strategic plan, there's always a catch, right? A critical vulnerability, a limiting factor. And according to this blueprint, we've already moved past the need for more silicon. The final bottleneck, the big problem we have to solve now, is just raw electrical power. You know, for the past decade, the big race was all about compute hardware. Who could make the fastest GPUs? But Musk argues we're about to be making more AI chips than we can physically power on. The exponential growth in computing is just blowing past the linear growth of our global energy grid, and that's creating a huge impending power crisis. Which, of course, leads to the critical strategic question. How in the world do you scale energy production here on Earth to meet the exponential demand of a global AI and robotics infrastructure? And the answer is presented as basically a solved engineering problem. A solar field that's 100 miles by 100 miles, so about 10,000 square miles, could power the entire United States. The point is, this isn't a technological barrier anymore. It's really a question of industrial scale and political will. So if energy on Earth is the big bottleneck, the strategy has to pivot to a place with nearly limitless resources, and in this case, that place is space. This right here is the unlocking mechanism for the entire vision. So this is crucial. You have to stop thinking about Starship as just a rocket for exploring planets. In the strategic context, it's a piece of economic infrastructure. Getting to full reusability is the key that makes building massive systems off-world economically possible. It's what he calls a civilization multiplier. And this number just perfectly illustrates that economic shift. Full reusability is projected to drop the cost of launching mass into orbit by a factor of 100. 100 times. That brings the cost of space freight down below conventional air cargo, which completely transforms the economics of everything that comes next. And once you have that, this incredibly compelling business case just clicks into place.
First, cheap access means you can launch massive solar-powered data centers. Once you're in orbit, solar panels are 5 times more effective, and the near absolute zero cold of space gives you a limitless and totally free cooling system. The logical conclusion? Within years, space becomes the most efficient and the lowest cost place to do large-scale AI.
Okay, so we've laid out the tech and the economic framework. Now we have to zoom out and look at the huge philosophical implications for our species. What does all of this actually mean for us? This vision really presents us with 2 parallel frontiers to conquer. The external one is about making life multi-planetary, which is kind of an insurance policy for what he calls the flickering candle of consciousness. And at the same time, there's the internal frontier, treating our own biology as a solvable engineering problem, basically reprogramming that synchronized clock of aging that exists in all of our trillions of cells. But here's the thing. When you solve the problem of survival, you create a new and maybe even greater challenge. In a post-scarcity world where robots and AI provide everything you could ever physically need, what is the purpose of being human? What do you do? This is the crisis of meaning that's born from ultimate abundance.
And so the final takeaway isn't really a prediction, it's more of a philosophical stance. It's a call to action. The argument is that just from a quality of life perspective, it is strategically better to be actively building towards an optimistic future, even if you might be wrong, than to be passively correct about a pessimistic one. And that's a final thought to build the decade ahead.